Hey everybody, it is Mica, but of course you knew that, and I'm back again to continue our little chat about the classes of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, and today we are officially starting the second half, so we are in the final stretch, and that stretch begins with magic. Yes, we are talking about Wizard, everybody's favorite mage, so grab your staffs and get ready, because the magic is about to begin. There are none that exist who have so obsessively studied the enigmatic and destructive nature of the arcane, while many wizards are driven mad with this knowledge, often destroying themselves through lack of control. Those who emerge stable under the weight of such power wield a force barely imaginable in awe and effect. So I would comment about how short that was again, but I mean, come on, how much can you really say about a wizard that hasn't already been said? There are 5 races that can cast and conjure: the Archai, the Dark Mirror, the Elf, the Gnome, and again, the Human, and there are 3 resources the wizard will have to manage: mana, focus, and spellweaving. Mana is of course very self-explanatory, but focus and spellweaving are unique-ish. Focus is a buff you get by casting spells from the same school of magic in succession, the schools being fire, ice, and the arcane. And the more you cast, the stronger the buff, up to a certain point anyway, as it does cap. But this buff will remain as long as you do not cast from a different school or wait too long in between casts. The fire buff is known as Fury of Flame and will raise the damage, crit chance, and mana cost of all fire spells. The ice buff, Numbing Presence, will reduce your entity, while also decreasing the damage of ice spells. And finally, the arcane buff, Arcane Affinity, will return a percentage of your mana while reducing both mana cost and damage of magic. So basically we have a fire mage again.
Alright, move on! Nothing to see here! Please disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
Spellweaving, on the other hand, is a way to boost your spells. When found, you can attach a scroll fragment onto a core spell, and that's going to allow you to weave them into a faster, more powerful version of themselves. It also makes them instacast and free, so no mana cost. Wizards are limited to cloth armor, but can wield 1- and 2-handed, piercing, blunt, and certain edged weapons, 2-handed staves, and some shields, so there may be a little bit of versatility there. When it comes to abilities, there's no passive listed outside of those granted by focus, so nothing to speak of there, but the rest are divided by whether or not they have an elemental alignment. So we're going to cover the unaligned abilities first, and then we're going to jump into fire, ice, and arcane, just to try to create some illusion of order. And Order of the Gatewalkers is where we will begin. Now, this is an epic skill that will allow you to transverse gates throughout Terminus if you choose to join, you guessed it, the Order of the Gatewalkers. It's kind of similar to Druid. However, the wizards of this order are also tasked with keeping them safe from destruction, so it leads me to believe there may be a little bit of more to this, maybe a fun little bit of side content perhaps. We shall see. Then we have Flash, which will allow you to teleport a short distance. Now this sounds like it's gonna be great for last minute dodging. I know when I play mages, I narrowly escape a whole lot of instant death moves because I just want to finish casting my spell. So maybe this will make that moment just a bit less butt clenching. You can also summon an arcane familiar which will siphon mana from the environment and slowly transfer to you unless you decide to dismiss it and get all that mana in one big chunk. Then you have an epic ability that will summon a fire familiar, which will keep your Fury of Fire focus active no matter which school you are casting from. And then there are 3 brands: Embers, Frost, and Arcane, that will lower an enemy's resistance to their respective element. Sight of Sages will allow you to see beings who normally would be invisible to the naked eye while reducing your normal vision. And Shelter of Energies will encircle you with energies that will increase your max health and your armor class. And now let's move on to your abilities that are fire aspected, as I assume you're going to be using the spells more than anything, as they have that nice damage that goes along with them, which is also why they made the top of my elemental list. Now you have 1 fire spell that can be woven, and that one is Smolder, which will inflict fire damage. Char is the spell you weave off it, and it will inflict fire damage that has a chance to crit. And then you have Engulf, which will inflict fire damage that is guaranteed to crit and cause damage over time. Now remember, woven spells are instacast and free, so this has the potential to be quite the boom boom. There's also 1 spell that can be evolved, and that is Crew Venoth's Fiery Winds, which will cause AoE fire damage in a path between you and a target area. You can evolve it into Fiery Gale, which will not only do more damage, but it will cause it to explode when it reaches its endpoint, inflicting even more. Radiate Heat and Fiery Surge are just another 2 AoE fire damage spells that will damage all the mobs around you, while Invoke Fire is an AoE spell that will knock all enemies down around you. Ember Arrow will inflict fire damage with a burn effect, and Torch the Glacier is a little bit different. It will have you channeling fire at an enemy, causing damage over time, but it will be cancelled if you move, and it also bases its damage off of cold resistance instead of fire. Infernal Lance is a spell you can charge up, and the longer you charge it, the more powerful and costly it becomes. But with it, you launch a Molten Lance at an enemy, causing a shockwave that will strike all enemies in front of you. And finally, Fire Flash will, basically it's a fireball with a knockback effect. Next, it's time to sit back and chill with some cold magic. Puns. Because there's only 4 listed, and Glint is your first one, and it's just a cold-based single target DPS spell that will also slow the movement speed of your target. Vey rules, not to be confused with Ja rules, Icy Blade will launch a blade of icy mana at a target, hitting everything in its path, and the more it hits between you and the target, the more damage it will do at the end. And then we have a fun little combo, and the combo begins with Frozen Fortress, which will encase you in solid ice, and forcing whatever you're fighting to try to break it to get at you. Now, this will keep you immune from all damage and all detrimental effects. But if you really want to surprise your enemies, you can follow Frozen Fortress up with Shatter the Ice, which will shatter this prison around you, sending ice shards everywhere and damaging all nearby enemies. And this would just be a fun little one, and I would honestly use this IRL all the time. But that of course will bring us to the School of the Arcane, and Prism Burst is the first of the final 5 we were looking at today, and what that would do is hit a target with crystallized mana that will then explode and hit surrounding targets. Blast of Lightning will hit a target with a bolt of lightning, causing arcane damage and lowering their spell casting time, so it looks like you're actually going to buff your enemies with this one, but you could always follow that one up with Fractal Jolt to interrupt their casting if you need to. If you want to get away, you could drop a magical bond on them, which will bind their feet, slowing their movement speed. And if that doesn't work and you need to stay and fight, there's always Lightning Volley, which actually works in 2 ways. First, you can target your enemy and have them repeatedly hit with bunches of bolts of lightning, or you can not select a target and just let it fly and let it hit, whatever it hits. And that is Wizard, and that was actually surprisingly short all around. I think that's actually been my shortest one yet. Anyway, there really isn't too much to say. I mean, it's a wizard, and like most video game wizards, it's gonna use ice, fire, lightning, and it sounds like fire is gonna be your go-to. I mean, yada yada yada. It's kind of the same old, same old. Now, there is a nice balance between a single target and AoE spells, with some of them even being both or either, and mana doesn't seem like it's gonna be too much work to manage with the ability to replenish it between summons and ice magic. Now, I know this part is going to upset some of you out there, especially if you work for Visionary Realms. But others really like this part because I will champion a game, but I will not white knight it. I will not troll a game either. I try to stay very fair. So that's what I'm doing here. But Wizard, on paper, feels a whole lot like, and now remember, I'm your friend, but Wizard feels a whole lot like Black Mage from Final Fantasy XIV. Yep, I said it. Black Mage from Final Fantasy XIV. Now you gotta hear me out as why. So you have the focus ability, and this focus ability really resembles Umbrals from Final Fantasy XIV. All your firepower is behind fire, and mana replenishment is behind ice. And your enmity replenishment used to be behind ice in 14 as well, but they got rid of that when they changed up the combat system and they rebooted the game. You also have lightning, which is just kind of over in its weird spot. Then they even have a fire 1, 2, 3 sort of system when it comes to spell weaving. Now granted, Black Mage does not have the same amount of buffs and debuffs, but that's mainly due to the way combat works in that game. I mean, it could be that they're just cut from the same mold, which is likely since there is very little variation when it comes to wizards in pretty much any game. The good thing, the positive out of this, however, is that Black Mage is one of Final Fantasy XIV's best job. But we will need to really wait and see when Pantheon comes out and we get a full list of abilities before we make a final judgment. That's just for me saying this is what it looks like on paper at this moment. But yeah, we'll see when it comes out. So, sorry. But what do you think? Is that a fair assessment, or am I completely missing something, or just completely off the mark? Are you excited for Wizard? Let me know in the comments below or on my social media, which is also linked below, along with the official website Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, in case you want to know more or in case you want to pledge. Now, next time I will be continuing with mages and covering Summoner, so I hope to see you then. And as per the usual, it has been a hoot. Until next time, have fun.